Hi, and welcome to another episode of Plastic Models by Regular Dude. I put a photo on the Google Plus group recently that showed a picture of these boxes. And what those boxes are storage compartments with handcrafted, compartmentalized storage. So in these boxes, I was able to put all of my old models from the 80s. And one box I had opened, the other hasn't been opened since probably 1990. So I was quite amazed when I saw what was in the boxes. So anyway, that's what this video is going to be about. It's going to be a quick look at some of my old models from the 1980s. Okay, so the first one is actually the second model I built, getting back into models in the kind of early mid 80s. The first one I built was a Sherman M4 Sherman by Tamiya, and I didn't keep that one. But the next one I built was this half track here. It's a Tamiya half track with the quad 50 mounted in the back for anti-aircraft, and it was a really cool kit. I liked it, but this is kind of a holdover from my early days of model building. Since the model was molded in color, I didn't bother painting the main vehicle. I would paint the wheels, the tires. I painted the rusty cable on the winch. I painted the figure. There was a figure inside, a couple of figures. And then I would paint the guns, tools, gas cans, stuff like that. And I even painted the, rusted the muffler and painted the engine. And, I don't know what I was thinking, but that's what I did. And I was just getting back into it. But it was a fun kit, and I always liked this when I had built a monogram version of this earlier, back in the 70s when I first got into armor. But that was the first one getting back into it. The next one I built I think was a Panzer II, a Tamiya Panzer II, but I didn't keep that one. It was the Africa Corps version, and I didn't keep that one either. It fell apart, or I shot it up with a pellet gun or something, I don't know. But then the next one I built was this SAS Jeep, and this one, again, I did the same thing. I didn't paint the main body parts. I just painted the tires, the gear, the two SAS soldiers. I painted them. Painted the machine guns. I painted the stowage in the back. And again, I didn't have an airbrush at the time, and I was kind of scared to get into it, and I didn't want to paint the whole thing with a brush, so that's what I did. There's a hideous seam mark on the extra. Well, I just broke that loose. That's awesome. Well, I'll just glue that back on at some point. But the extra cooling for the radiator. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a nice little seam line going there. So anyway, again, that was just getting back into the hobby. Now the next ones, I'm not sure about the order, but I have a pretty good idea. I think the next one I built was, I believe it was this one. Panzer Kampfwagen 4 chassis, the Sturmpanzer. And this is when I first got an airbrush. As a matter of fact, I know this is the one because this is the first one I painted with airbrush, and I used Tamiya Model Master paints. And I got really crazy and even did the camouflage on it. But this one I took a little bit more time. I spent a little more time weathering the tracks and painting the figure. The figure actually is not too awful bad for an early attempt. But I painted all the gear. I modeled some of the parts missing. I did weather it somewhat light on the weathering. Some of my color choices are kind of funky, like I did the track I did gray and then weathered it with some rust color. But I did look at things like, you know, weathering the teeth on the drive sprocket, and you know, I was starting to pay a little bit more attention to the details in the weathering and stuff like that. And I actually got third place in a model contest with this one, so that was kind of cool. I think the next two I built, I don't know what order they were in, but it was the Lee. Little bit more into the weathering, a little heavier weathering. This one actually, I kind of like this one still. It turned out pretty good. I modeled it with the fender completely gone, like it had been damaged and been removed. Accurate, I don't know, but that's what I did. But this one turned out pretty good. I liked it, and I did it in the early pre-war markings. But that one turned out pretty good. I like that one. Again, these are, so far, everything's Tamiya kits, and yeah, pretty groovy. The next one I did was the Grant. Now this one has suffered a little bit of damage in storage. Where I had it stored, it got so hot that it curled my spruce stretched antenna pretty well. The hatches are missing. I still have them, so I can replace them. And it's also missing one of the bogies, but I still have that, so I can replace that. But again, I was looking at, you know, trying to do some, you know, decent weathering. I had a figure for this one, but he fell behind the desk, so I'm gonna have to retrieve him at some point. But this is, you know, based in the desert, obviously. So that was another one. Then probably the next one, for a short time, I got into some modern or semi-modern armor. Now I built this one here. It's the M113, and I have the other parts for it, the turret and the hatch and all that. But this is, oddly enough, this is one of the motorized versions. It actually has a motor inside, and I'm sure it probably still works. I'll get some batteries and give it a shot one of these days. So I did the M113, and then another one I did, a modern vehicle, was the Bradley. I kind of like this one. This was the one with the detailed interior. Hatches operate all over the place, and it does have interior detail, kind of rudimentary, and I didn't really get into super detailing anything in there, but you know, it does have interior detail. That one kind of turned out alright. The weathering got a little bit, you know, heavier on the weathering, and then the tow missile launcher has fallen off, so I need to repair that. But that was another brief look at modern. After that, I pretty much stuck to World War II. The next one I built was this Japanese tank, and for some reason these tracks just went berserk. They broke. A couple of the wheels had fallen off. The hatches, the small hatch of the two-part hatch up top came off. This is all repairable stuff, and this one, you know, again, I was looking at the old weathering, trying to perfect it a little bit. The tracks turned out okay. Maybe not as good as they should be for, you know, in the jungle, but you know, it's all the vinyl tracks, and that's why they separated. But that was the only Japanese vehicle I built, and I haven't built one since. Then after that, I built, I believe it was the M5, I'm not sure, but the M5 Stuart. I really enjoyed this one. I like the small, compact size of it. But this one turned out good. I like this one. Again, it's another Tamiya kit. I think all these kits I'm showing you actually are Tamiya. Every one of them. I was a Tamiya freak. Still like them. But this one turned out really well, and this one actually stayed together. So this one, I'm really stoked with this one. And this one is going to be displayed with all of my current builds because it turned out really well. It has the Cullen hedgerow device on the front. So that one turned out good. Then I also did the M3 Stuart, and this one also turned out pretty nice. I like this one. One of the hatches is falling off, but I can fix it. You know, added a little bit of extra stowage, some gas cans, not tied down, of course. A couple of rolls, pail, little, you know, haversack going on there. So again, that's, you know, this is when I was starting to kind of get my weathering and all that going, and I even tried to, one of the things I did, a modification I made, hopefully you can see it, is right here I cut out the molded on screen and made my own out of some fiberglass window screen. So, you know, by this time I had some of Francois Verlinden's books. So I was trying to emulate some of the stuff that he had done. The next one I think I built was this one, a Martyr 2, and this one was another one that I really I like the finished product. You know, it has an interior, and you know, figures. Figures turned out okay, but you know, the weathering and so forth turned out okay, and I was getting into, you know, polished spots where, you know, the troops climb on and off. But this is another one that suffered a track failure, and this one was weird because it broke in two places, and it was like it had melted, like from a candle or something. I don't know what the deal was with that, but so I'm missing a track on that one. But this one turned out good. I like this one. Then the next one I built was T-34-76, and this was the first, actually this is the only Russian armor I've built, but I really like the way this one turned out, you know, given my abilities at the time, and you know, went pretty good on the weathering. You know, I never did any mud effects or anything like that. I was afraid to do that, maybe one of these days, but you know, it's got a driver inside. This kit, I remember when I built this kit, I really liked it because it fit together so well, and there's like lots of surface detail, like bolts and the screens over the engine, lots of good stuff for dry brushing, and that's the way I weathered everything back then, was I dry brushed it all. I'd paint a base color on it, then highlight it with a little bit of lighter, the color lightened up a bit, and then hit it with whatever sand or dirt color, dust color I wanted, and I like this one. Turned out pretty good. One of the figures fell out and his hatch came off, but that's the only things that are messed up on this one, so it'll be easy to repair. And then finally, the final build I did before I packed up, before getting married, was this King Tiger. This is Tamiya King Tiger, and this one I went whole hog on. I did a lot. I mean, this is the old Tamiya King Tiger kit, and I mean, it was just basic. It was missing a lot of stuff, and some of the, like the cables on the side were molded on, so I shaved those off, made my own cables, made my own cleaning rods, all of the little brackets on the side. Let me turn it around this way. Hopefully we can see them, but all these little brackets, I handcrafted those from a Winsor Newton paint tube, metal paint tube. I don't know if it was lead foil or what, but I made all those from scratch and glued them on. All the brackets, I made the brackets out of styrene and glued a piece of the tube across the top of it. And this, I added Zimmerit to this one, and the way I added the Zimmerit to this, yeah, quite labor intensive. The way I did it is I drew the Zimmerit pattern where I was going to have it on everything that was going to have the Zimmerit, and I took liquid cement and doing probably two or three rows of Zimmerit at a time. I slathered some Testors liquid cement on there, plastic cement, and let it sit. And then I took an X-Acto knife with not the number 11 blade, but the one that's, you know, it's a little bit shorter, and hand scraped every single Zimmerit line on this whole bleeding thing. And it turned out pretty good. I'm not sure how well you can see it in the the barrel fell off. As you can see, the barrel had broke a long time ago. But I was really stoked with that. And then, you know, the engine intake covers and so forth, I hand scratched those from screen because I didn't even know if you could buy them back then. All the grab handles made from very thin copper wire. I put the weld marks all the way around the turret, the hull, wherever there's weld marks. I roughed up the where it would have been torch cut, and you know, these are the kit tracks, vinyl tracks, and as you can see, they've shrunk a little bit. They're kind of bowed inwards from shrinking with age. But that was the culmination, the pinnacle of my modeling. I got a first place with this one at a local contest, and after that I got married and moved around a few times, so all my stuff was packed up, and as they say, the rest is history. Verlin figure. So that basically is my model history in a nutshell. That is everything that I have left that I built, and I only tossed a few models. So that is what we've got. So anyway, that's just a real brief look at my modeling voyage starting back in the 90s, picking it up again nowadays. So hope you liked it.